Good evening. I would like to welcome you to the October 25th, 2022 meeting of the City Plan Commission. Before we begin, we will outline the procedure that we will follow for our public hearing. As each agenda item is called, the applicant or his or her representatives and persons for the request will be allowed to speak. Then the persons against the request will be allowed to speak. If there is opposition to the request, the applicant will be allowed to make a short rebuttal. All persons wishing to speak need to come to the microphone at the front of the room. Please state your name and address for the record. All statements made should be relevant to the agenda item and limited to 3 minutes. If there are several persons in favor of or opposed to a request, we encourage you to allow 1 or 2 persons to act as a spokesperson for the group. If you like, a spokesperson for a group may request that the group stand and be recognized. While public discourse is very important to the Commission, we have to maintain order in the meeting so that all persons may be heard and city business may be conducted. If so directed by me, the Sergeant at Arms shall remove from this meeting any person while addressing the Commission or while attending the Commission meeting making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, who becomes boisterous, or making unauthorized remarks from the audience, stomping of feet, whistles, yells, or similar demonstrations. The Commission members have reviewed each of these items in a previous work session. The recommendations we make tonight to the City Council will be based on the work session and the information provided by staff, as well as any additional information presented tonight. After completing the hearing on each item, the Commission will consider action on the item. The action taken tonight on these items will be in the form of a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will also conduct a hearing on these items, which will be held on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 in the Bosque Theater of the Waco Convention Center, 100 Washington Avenue. The record and recommendation of the Plan Commission and the new testimony will be considered by the Council at that time. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our September 24th, 2022 work session and business meetings and September 27th, 2022 work session and business meetings. Are there any changes or additions? Seeing none, they stand approved as written. Our first items tonight will be our subdivision plats. What is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission, this is a public hearing on a request on the following 2 subdivision plats. Final plat and construction plans of the Texas Central Edition, lots 9 and 10, block 7, and preliminary plat of the Prairie View Estates Edition. City staff has reviewed these requests and recommends approval of both subdivision plats.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing on these items. Are the applicants or his or her representatives here to speak on these items? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to these items? We'll close the public hearing. On items 1 and 3 of our plats subdivision section, we have a recommendation of approval from city staff. As we have further discussion, we will entertain a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to motion that we motion to recommend approval for items 1 and 3.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ramos, second by Mr. Lane. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Rouse.
Yes. Briscoe.
Yes. Avery. Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
In item 2 of our subdivisions, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Members of the Commission, this is a public hearing on the following subdivision plat. Preliminary plat of the Lake Waco Business Park Edition, ETJ, and city staff has reviewed this request and recommends approval with conditions.
Thank you. Is the applicant, we'll open our public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak on this item? You can come on down, state your name and address, and any comments to the commission.
Thank you, sir. I'm David Mark from CPNY. I live at 115 Bold Springs Court, West Texas. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I work for the engineering firm that put together the preliminary plat. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any at this time.
Any questions for the applicant's representative? All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition on this plat? Okay. We'll close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval with conditions from city staff. Unless there's further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve with conditions.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Reynolds, second by Ms. Briscoe. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse.
Yes.
Briscoe. Embry. Harris.
Yes.
Lane. Ramos.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-54, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Carly Linehan on behalf of Skyway Holdings LLC for property at 1029 North Loop Drive for the renewal of a special permit for a contractor's shop in a C3 district. We mailed out 24 notices and had 0 returned on this request. The applicant has requested a continuance of this request to the November 14, 2022 Plan Commission meeting, and city staff does recommend approval of the continuance.
Our public hearing on this item remains open. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak on this item? Is anyone else here to speak in favor? Is anyone here to speak in opposition on this item? We will continue keep the public hearing open. We have a recommendation or a request for continuance from the applicant. Unless we have discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to continue this item in accordance with the request.
Second.
Motion to continue this item by Mr. Lane, second by Mr. Ramos. Any final discussion?
I did want to point out that Plan Commission member Nathan Embry has filled out an affidavit of substantial interest for this item.
Thank you. Please poll the commission.
Browse.
Yes.
Briscoe.
Yes.
Embry. Harris.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-58, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Will Winkleman on behalf of Chad West, doing business as Snap Clean Car Wash for property at 2314 Marketplace Drive for a special permit for an automobile car washing establishment in a C2 district. We mailed out 16 notices and had 0 returned on this request. Planning Services recommends approval of the special permit subject to special provisions and conditions and based on the following findings. 1, that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the purposes and intent of Chapter 28 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco. 2, that the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area in which it is located. 3, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics in any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of a special exception. And 4, that available community facilities and services, including the road system providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use. These findings are required for the granting of a special permit as per Section 28-122 of the City of Waco zoning ordinance. I will note that this request was continued by Plan Commission at this September 27, 22 meeting. And since that meeting, city staff has added a couple of additional conditions to the request. And they read as follows. Condition 14, signage shall be installed in, directing cars exiting the car wash tunnel to turn left. And 15, signage shall be installed prohibiting loud music on the site.
Thank you. Our public hearing remains open. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? Just state your name and address for the commission.
Good evening. My name is Chris McGowan. My address is 2501 Briar Cliff here in Waco, Texas. I am happy to answer any questions you may have about this application.
Mr. McGowan, I know there was a continuance last month based on some questions from Baylor Scott and White, which is a neighboring property there. Could you give us a little bit of insight as to discussions that have happened between last month and now?
Yeah, sure. We've had multiple conversations, Zoom and email and otherwise, with members of the real estate team of Baylor Scott and White. Generally speaking, they were just interested to learn more about the project. Particularly the reclamation, the water reclamation system that's going to recycle about 80% of the water in this project. You know, what the tanks look like and how they're going to be maintained and all that kind of stuff. And They are generally satisfied with that, as well as the two additional special conditions, or conditions that that Beatrice read, were a result of those conversations. They were worried about loud music on the site. As a policy for my client's car washes, he put signs up that discourage loud music anyway, and they have people that patrol that. And then they were also concerned, if you'll note, that coming out of the car wash tunnel, there is an existing access agreement and easement to the right into their parking lot. And while we can't necessarily enforce it, we did want to put a sign up to their satisfaction that encourages people to come out of the left to not get in the way of their property. As you know, most people will be turning to the left anyway to get to the vacuum bays. But you know, it's all just a matter of being a good neighbor. We're excited about the project, and I think they are as well.
One question, just in your applicant's original application narrative, they note that the closest express tunnel competitor is over 2 miles away. Are they aware, at least from the point at which they wrote that, there's now 2 others within at least less than a mile of the location?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think those are under construction, or are they complete?
At least one is close, if not, and then the other's in the process. Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? All right, we will close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval with conditions from city staff, and I'll have the discussion or entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'd like the motion that we recommend approval with condition.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ramos, second by Ms. Reynolds. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Rouse? Yes.
Briscoe.
Yes. Embry? Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-65, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Ryan and Madison Thomas for property at 10341 Fallen Leaf Drive for a special permit for short-term rental type 1 in an R1B district. We mailed out 39 notices on this request and had 2 returned by email in opposition to the request. After further review of the application, city staff is recommending a continuance of this request to allow the applicant to work through some questions and concerns that were raised about potential deed restrictions on the property that could potentially prohibit short-term rental. And so our recommendation is for a continuance to the November 14, 2022 meeting.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing on this item. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? Just come down, state your name and address. Any comments you have?
Hi, my name is Ryan Thomas. My address is 10341 Fallen Leaf Drive. Just to comment on some of the emails that we've had today. So I was sent a document that stated that there were some restrictions on short-term rentals in my neighborhood. And then when I looked through there, I noticed that it was applied to certain lots, of which our lot and block was not stated as part of that list, which would deem us not restricted by that document. So I just wanted to put that out there. I've got documents on the front page of my deed, which should be inside of my application. You'll see it clearly stated that we are lot 23, block 23, block 1, and the properties listed inside this restriction, which is, I think, a declaration by whoever owns the Creekside neighborhood or something. You probably would need to look into that, but the properties that are listed are lots 1 through 16, block 6, lots 1 through 20, block 7, lots 1 through 10, block 8, And yeah, I believe that's it. None of which stating lot 23, block 1, which is where I live. So,
Any questions for the applicant?
So you've looked into this issue, and you don't think that it's going to be a problem with the deed restrictions? Is kind of what I think I hear you saying.
yeah, I don't think it would be a problem. I took the liberty of knocking on the door of some of my neighbors to make sure there weren't any like overt restrictions or rejections to us renting out our room, and no one seemed to have any objections, at least when I was knocking. There could have been more people that were sent the notice that I didn't knock on their door, but for the most part, no one had any objections. And to clarify, we're just renting out a room, and we will be living on the property.
Based on that, does that change city's recommendation of continuance? Or is there something more that the city would like to see? Or
Have you been able to provide that to the city?
Yeah, I have my deed provided. I wasn't able to give them like what exactly I'm looking at, apart from the deed that shows our lot is lot 23, block 1.
Okay.
But they do have access to they're the ones that sent the Creekside restriction document. And so if you match up the lots at the beginning of that document to the front page of the deed that's in my application, you'll see what I'm explaining.
Excuse me. I believe if we continued it, it would be to the November 15th meeting. Would there be any sort of loss to y'all if we continued it those, 3-ish weeks?
I don't think so. I don't perceive there being any.
Primary goal would just be for city to be comfortable from a legal standpoint.
Okay, yeah.
That they're in the clear. So.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I don't see anything changing with documentation, I mean, I think it's fine with me. There's nothing rushing me.
Well, any other questions for the applicant, Mr. Thomas? Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Is anyone here to speak in opposition on this item? Okay, we will leave our public hearing open. We have a recommendation of a continuance. Unless we have further discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue this agenda item.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Briscoe to continue, second by Mr. Ramos. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Ross? Yes. Briscoe?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
In the case Z-22-66, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Jackson Luckin for property at 4608 Bagby Avenue for a special permit for short-term rental type 1 in an R1B district. We mailed out 21 notices on this request and had 0 returned. Planning Services recommends approval of the special permit subject to special provisions and conditions and based on the following findings. 1, that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. 2, the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area in which it is located. 3, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of a special exception. And 4, that available community facilities and services, including the road system providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use. And these findings are required for the granting of a special permit as per section 28-122 of the City of Waco zoning ordinance. And I did want to point out that there are 12 recommended conditions with this request.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing on this item. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? Is anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval with conditions for the STR Type 1 special permit from city staff. Unless we have a discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve with conditions based on the findings of the city staff.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Lane, second by Ms. Briscoe. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-67, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Mary Wise and John Calloway on behalf of Mission Waco Mission World, Inc. for property at 1217 Mary Avenue for the renewal of a special permit for a shelter in a C5 district. We mailed out 16 notices on this request and received one in favor of the request. And Planning Services recommends approval of the special permit renewal, subject to the special provisions and conditions, and based on the findings required for the granting of a special permit as per section 28-122 of the City of Waco zoning ordinance that were previously read on record. And this recommendation does come with 10 standard conditions, including a 5-year renewal for this shelter.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? I'm available for questions. Excellent. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in favor on the item? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to the item? We'll close our public hearing. Recommendation from city staff of approval for the renewal of the special permit. Unless we have discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to motion that we recommend approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ramos, second by Ms. Reynolds.
Sorry, I seconded. Approval with conditions, right?
Yeah, I think, well,
I think,
For example, conditions being the 5-year term limit.
yeah,
as recommended by.
yeah, yes.
Now, the 5-year term, 5-year is the standard, correct?
Correct.
Your motion was for what city staff recommended.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. That.
Well, we have a motion for approval in a second. Do we have any discussion? Please poll the commission.
Yes.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Embry, Harris, Lane,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
All righty. In the case of Z-22-68, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Brian Schroeder on behalf of LMK Enterprises LLC for 0.23 acres, 10,000 square feet of property described as being all of that tract of land located in the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, being a portion of Lot 13, Block 1 of the Westwood addition to the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, as shown on the plat recorded in McLennan County Clerk's document 2015032996 of the official records of McLennan County, Texas, known as 4901 Franklin Avenue, to rezone from M2 to C2. We mailed out 7 notices and had 0 returned. Planning Services is recommending approval of the request to change the zoning from M2 to C2 based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for use allowed in the C2 zoning district. 3, the property meets all the size and width requirements for C2 zoning. And 4, commercial is the zoning dominant zoning along this side of Franklin Avenue.
Thank you. We will open our public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? If you'd like, you're welcome to come down and state your name and address.
Unless y'all have questions, no need.
Thanks. Do we have any questions we'd like to ask of the applicant? Thanks. Is anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval with conditions from city staff. We'll entertain a motion unless we have discussion.
I move that we approve based on staff findings.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Browse, second by Mr. Lane. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse?
Yes.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Embry?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-69, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Sandra Llanos, Alfred Rios, and the City of Waco for property located at 1701, 1705, 1709, and 1711, 1700, 1704, 1708, 1712, and 1714 Proctor Avenue for a land use designation change from mixed-use flex and medium-density residential office flex to urban residential and to rezone from C2 and C3 to R1B. Staff mailed out 40 notices. We had 0 returned. Planning Services recommends approval of the land use designation change from mixed-use flex and medium-density residential office flex to urban residential based on the following findings. 1, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for zoning districts allowed in the proposed urban residential land use designation. 2, there is urban residential land use in the vicinity of the subject property. Planning Services also recommends approval of the request to change the zoning from C2 and C3 to R1B based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan as revised. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in the R1B zoning district. 3, the property meets all the size and width requirements for R1B zoning. 4, there is R1B zoning adjacent to the subject property. 5, the proposed R1B zoning is more compatible with the surrounding area than the existing C2 and C3 zoning. 6, R1B zoning brings the existing residential uses into conformance with the zoning ordinance.
We will open our public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? Is anyone else here to speak in favor of this item? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval for the land use designation change, as well as the rezoning on this item. Unless we have discussion on those, we will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve based on staff findings.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Briscoe, second by Mr. Lane. Just to clarify, that is for both the land use and the zoning change?
Yes.
Excellent. Please poll the commission.
Browse?
Yes.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Embry?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
In the case of Z-22-70, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Nathan Embry for property located at 1500 Benton Avenue for rezone from R1B to R2. Staff mailed out 24 notices and we had 0 returned. Planning Services recommends approval of this request to change the zoning from R1B to R2 based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan. 2, the property meets all the area and width requirements for the R2 zoning district. 3, the existing public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in the R2 zoning district. 4, there is other medium and high density zoning in the vicinity of the subject property.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing. We do have the applicant here. Are there any questions for him? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in favor on this item? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval of the rezoning by city staff. Unless we have discussion, we will entertain a motion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve based on staff findings.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Reynolds, second by Mr. Lane. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
And just for the record, Nathan Embry has filled out an affidavit of substantial interest and is disqualified from voting on this item. Browse?
Yes.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
In the case of ABD-22-9, what is the recommendation of city staff?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Joe Amaro for the abandonment of a portion of an alley between Dallas Street and a previously abandoned 20-foot alley parallel to Rusk Street, described as being all of that tract of land located in the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, being a portion of a 20-foot alley in Block 12 of the Renix addition to the city of Waco, as shown on the plat recorded in Volume 28, page 502 of the deed records of McLennan County, Texas. We mailed out 15 notices on this request and had 0 returned. Planning Services recommends approval of the abandonment request based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. 1, public use of the right-of-way is not required for the proper flow of traffic or for emergency vehicle access to the area. And 2, utility access for surrounding properties is not adversely impacted by the abandonment of this right-of-way. And the condition is that a sewer line easement shall be retained for the whole area of the abandonment.
Thank you. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? Is there anyone here to speak in favor on this item? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Close our public hearing. We have a recommendation of approval of the abandonment by city staff. Once we have discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve based on staff findings.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Brown, second by Ms. Briscoe. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse?
Yes.
Briscoe? Yes. Embry? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
All right, for those following along with our agenda, we are going to skip item ABD 22-10 per the request of the applicant. It has been removed from the agenda. So we'll move on to ABD-22-11. What is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Beth Arnold on behalf of Bill Wetterman for abandonment of a portion of an alley located near Jefferson Avenue and North 9th Street, described as a 0.075 acre parcel of land located within Farm Lot 17 of the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, and being a portion of a 20-foot alley, 20-foot wide alley located between Columbus Avenue and Jefferson Avenue. We mailed out 10 notices on this request and had, 7 notices on this request and had 0 returned. Planning Services recommends approval of the abandonment request based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. 1, public use of the right-of-way is not required for the proper flow of traffic or for emergency vehicle access to the area. And 2, utility access for surrounding properties is not adversely impacted by the abandonment of this right-of-way. And the condition is that an ingress-egress easement shall be retained to provide access to the Waco Independent School District building located at 319 South 10th Street, unless Waco Independent School District provides documentation that the easement is not needed to access their building.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? If you come down, state your name and address and any comments to the commission.
My name is Bill Wetterman, 23951 I-35, West Texas. I am the owner of the property. I was not aware of the condition that the city's recommending and would have an objection to that condition. It would be prohibitive with the proposed development of multifamily housing that we have proposed there. The Waco Independent School District does have access to the rear of their property through an alley that runs from Columbus to their property. So this was simply a secondary access easement that they have, and it wouldn't be necessary for them to utilize it.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? In regards to that secondary access point, city staff, do y'all know if that is a legal easement in effect, and if it does indeed fully access the Waco ISD building loading dock?
It does appear that there is a portion of alley that runs from Columbus Avenue to the property that is owned by Waco ISD. So that may be correct. We haven't done an on-the-ground, looked at it closely. I would just ask whether there has been any communication with Waco ISD with this request.
Have you had a chance to talk to Waco ISD in regards to that building?
I haven't. The alley that we're asking to be abandoned is merely a platted alley. It goes across a vacant lot. I mean, it's just grass. The alley that goes to Columbus is improved and maintained.
Any questions for the applicant?
So is it your understanding that Waco ISD does not use the area that you're asking to be abandoned?
I'm not aware if they do or they don't. I'm just saying that currently the alley that we're asking to be abandoned is grass. It's not a gravelled, improved alley that shows any sign of traffic. There's no utilities in it. And the alley that is improved and existing from Columbus goes directly to their property and ends at their property. So they have access. The alley that we're asking to abandon is literally on paper only.
So for city staff, question, does the Waco ISD property border North 10th Street? Is that right?
That's what it appears to be, yes.
White roof, it looks like. Given
Waco ISD would have been given notice of this hearing, correct?
Yes, correct.
They haven't made any response?
We have not received any response.
Out of curiosity, do you often receive responses or not responses? Like, would it have gone to the correct office, I guess, would be the...
It varies by case, specifically with abandonment requests. If there is someone who is concerned about limited access to their property, then we typically do hear from them. In this case, we have not heard from Waco ISD. It is something that we added because it seems like it is being used for access at the rear of the property. I can't tell from the images that I have of the alley whether that portion of alley that's currently still right-of-way from Columbus to that building, I cannot tell whether that's paved or not.
Given the necessity for that easement not to be in place for your development plans, would you be comfortable with the continuance to talk to Waco SD for a confirmation that that's not essential from their standpoint?
I prefer not to. I've got development plans that are being put on hold. It's my understanding that they use that building simply as archive and storage, and I've never ever even seen anybody at that building. And they do also have access to that building from 10th Street.
Sure.
So my position would be they had the opportunity to respond, and they didn't. So my position is that they have no objection.
Any final questions for Mr. Wetterman? All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Is anyone here to speak in favor on this item? Anyone else here, or is anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay. We will close our public hearing. We have a motion for approval with conditions, albeit with that ingress-egress easement. Unless we have discussion, we'll entertain a motion, but.
I'd like to discuss that a little bit before we move forward. I have a question for city staff. If we were to pass, or if a motion were to carry with the condition, would, let me ask you this way. If we were to approve this without city staff's recommending condition, would the city council still be able to consider that condition, or by us voting down that condition, would it not go before city council?
So the recommendation that we provide to City Council is the recommendation that comes from Plan Commission. If city staff continues to have concern, we can still include that suggestion in the background, if I'm not mistaken, but it would not be a recommendation from Plan Commission.
So if Plan Commission were to recommend approval with this condition recommended by city staff, theoretically, the applicant would have between now and the city council taking it up to be able to get that document from Waco ISD and potentially satisfy that condition at the time of the hearing?
That's correct. There's opportunity for that.
You know,
From my perspective, I think it makes more sense in my head to, I would tend to vote towards approving it with the condition, just because then it gives the option to city council whether or not they want to see it. Whereas if we vote down the condition now, then they don't even get to consider it.
What about the option of voting for a continuance? I mean, we're looking at just 3 weeks out at this point because our November meeting is early. Mr. Rouse, do you think that is in line with what you're saying to try to give them time to talk to WISD?
Yeah, I suppose, but then that just gets us back to us, and then we'll have to wait till probably after the first of the year for it to get to city council. If we keep it on if we take a vote tonight, then when's the next city council be?
these will be taken up on November 15th.
So they will take it up on November 15th, so.
And I did also, I was just informed by city staff as well that the main concern for that recommended easement is because even though there might be an alley that could provide access to the rear of that building, it doesn't look like that alley would provide access to the loading dock at the rear of the building.
I guess to voice my concern in this discussion is, Waco ISD is obviously a place that has multiple locations, and I don't know if anybody offices at this particular location. And I know the time to respond to a notice like this is limited. I would just want to voice the concern that Waco ISD has ample time, given their corporate structure, if you will, to voice any concern that they have. So I certainly wouldn't want to vote down the measure, but maybe to give a continuance to make sure that Waco ISD has that opportunity.
Were it continued to November 14th, would it meet a council agenda item or a council meeting before the end of the year?
Yes, what we have in mind for items coming to Plan Commission on November 14th, because the date is earlier than usual, items would then go to City Council at their first meeting, which would be December 6th, Tuesday, December 6th. We're looking at a 3-week difference.
Did you say, B, just to be clear, that if it were to be approved without the recommended easement, I'm sorry, let me gather my thoughts better. You said at the next council meeting, you could bring up your concerns if you had a concern, or if some document from Waco ISD was submitted that you needed to bring up, you could do that as well. Is that correct? Did I do that? Might line of questioning.
What I was intending to get at is that city staff can certainly provide additional information to city council if we attain that information between now and the council meeting. But Plan Commission's recommendation would be whatever you vote on this evening.
Thanks for clarifying that. So they could approve it with the staff's recommendation, even if we vote?
They would have that opportunity, yes.
I agree with the continuance to give them ample opportunity to make sure, because we don't know where that notice is. It could be sitting in the mailbox still on someone's desk, but yeah.
Yeah, I know, Mr. Wetterman, that's not the ideal scenario, but just in the interest of making sure that ample time, as you said, is given. And then if they opt not to respond in that given time frame, then they've sort of expressed that. Timelines for standard noticing are pretty tight.
Right, but beyond that, even if we give them another month to respond, to make sure the thing gets where it's going to go, the recommendation is to leave the easement in, regardless of whether they show up or not. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why, if, let's say we wait 3 weeks and they don't show up, it's going to be the same recommendation that we put the easement in. So I don't see how giving them more time helps them, because the recommendation is to give them the easement, and they haven't shown up.
My thought process in that is if they don't take the opportunity to voice that, then that's just then I would say recommending approval of the abandonment without the easement would be suitable. So that's in my mind. So
I guess I would have a question for city staff, that if we voted to approve with the condition, and the city council also voted to approve with the condition, could the applicant come back and reapply to try to essentially remove that condition if they've worked out some sort of agreement with Waco ISD?
So our city staff standpoint is we would feel more comfortable with removing the easement or the recommendation for the easement if we have something in writing from Waco ISD. But yes, I mean, that's a possibility if they wanted to go through the abandonment process for the easement in the future. It would just require the same public hearing process that they're following now.
So I guess, I hearing everybody, is it beneficial to move it forward with recommendation with conditions, and then this gives the applicant time to obtain any documentation needed from WISD and submit that to the city before it gets to council to then change the recommendation? Is that correct?
So if we do receive something in writing, city
Yeah.
staff receives something in writing between now and the council meeting, we would feel comfortable recommending removing that condition.
So it sounds like our options are to leave the public hearing open if someone were to move for continuance, and we vote on that. Or just vote for approval either with or without this condition. Correct. So those are kind of our options, the three options, I guess.
those are the three. Yeah.
And well, I guess a question I have too is, we're saying that we move for continuance, but if WIC doesn't respond, but the city staff still feels more comfortable recommending if they receive something from WIC. Correct?
Yeah, I don't imagine city staff's recommendation will change if we do a continuance, regardless of what happens.
We're saying if we do a continuance to give more time, and if WIC does not respond, then we're saying, hey, we're comfortable as a commission to say we'll recommend without the condition, but the city staff still is saying they feel comfortable with recommending with condition until something comes from WIC.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
Matt, Mr. Wakeman, can I ask him another question?
Technically, we've closed the public hearing, yeah. So, sorry. We will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval with conditions.
we'd have to close the public hearing before,
We have.
We did.
because we
Yeah.
had the continuance on the table still.
The public hearing is not I closed the public hearing. I guess
Say if
it
it's
would
still
it
open,
reopen technically if we
Yeah.
motioned for a continuance? So, well,
We have closed the public hearing?
I have, yes.
I
Yeah.
didn't understand that.
Okay, Mr. Ramos has motioned for an approval with the stated conditions by city staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Ramos, second by Mr. Lane. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Briscoe? Yes. Embry,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. In the case of Annex -22-4, what is the recommendation of city staff? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct. So,
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Swanson Realty LTD for one request for voluntary annexation of territory, designating the comprehensive plan land use designation for the said territory as industrial, designating M2 light industrial district zoning for the said territory, and extending the boundary limits of said city to include the territory described as Lot 13, Block 1 of the Texas Central South Edition, known as 5759 Bagby Avenue, and further located within Waco's extraterritorial jurisdiction. We mailed out 3 notices and had 0 returned on this request, and city staff has reviewed it and recommends approval of the voluntary annexation request.
thank you. Is the applicant or his or her representative here to speak tonight? Is anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Is anyone here to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. Recommendation of approval by city staff. Any final discussion before we entertain a motion? Okay,
To approve based on the city staff findings.
motion by Mr. Lane, second by Mr. Browse. Any final discussion? Please poll the commission.
Browse,
Yes.
Yes.
Embry,
Yes.
Harris. Yes. Lane,
Yes.
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 For item 16, under our street closures section, what's the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from City of Waco and Texas Department of Transportation for the closure of an at-grade railroad crossing at Oxygen Drive for its replacement by frontage road bridge crossings. A little bit of background on this request is that the Texas Department of Transportation's Model Mall project on State Highway 6, which was let in August 2021, is constructing frontage road bridges at Union Pacific Railroad and to replace the at-grade crossing at Oxygen Drive. During the development phase of this project, all affected businesses and property owners were communicated with to agree on change of access to Oxygen Drive once the at-grade railroad crossing was removed, including the construction of a cul-de-sac and driveway access. The new frontage road bridges will replace the at-grade crossing and increase the safety to the traveling public. The project's schedule is as follows. This TxDOT project is currently under construction and is estimated to be completed by December of 2023. We mailed out 3 notices on this request and had 0 returned, and city staff does recommend approval of the request.
Thank you. We'll open our public hearing. Are the applicants or anyone else here to speak in favor on this item? Yes, sir. Come down, state your name, address, any comments for the commission.
My name is David Anderton. I own a building at 700 West Loop 340, and it greatly affects the access to our building. We worked with TxDOT in 21 for Oxygen Drive to continue to have access for our docks in the front, and they were more than accommodating. They kept that in in the plans. They also said Oxygen Drive, they had no problem with Oxygen Drive staying like it is. The city was ultimately the final decision maker, and I was told that because the city wants to, I don't know if there's some reward or whatever for closing railroad areas, but I'm not sure why they would want to do that, because there's hardly any, I've never seen I'd say never, you just don't see any railway activity there. And so I'm not understanding why that would even come up. I don't know how long I've got, but I'll just real quick. When we bought the building in about 20 years ago, it was for a central location. We do deliveries all over Waco. We have about 14 to 18 vehicles. This is going to completely change the way we have to deliver. And it'll cause us to go like 2.3 miles. We would have to go up around loop all the way to Beverly and all the way back to gain access from where y'all know of Whataburger. You can't come. It would completely cut us off. And that, of course, the monetary expense of that. But we've always worked real well with TxDOT and building this process out. And the city, I think, was involved as well. And we've talked to them about that land and how it's been developed over time and what Oxygen Road means to that area. And I really didn't get any resistance, but for some reason we're still, I guess it's still planned. And maybe I could understand better if maybe y'all could help me, but.
And are you on the south side of the railroad tracks?
I'm at the building, the Integ building, which is, that's my building. It's got solar panels on top of it. I guess that would be the north side.
Okay.
On the corner of Industrial.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess north, south, east, west is always a little.
I mean, Oxygen Drive connects 84 to Industrial Boulevard. I mean, there's no way to get, other than taking the loop all the way back around over to Beverly, which is the and taking that and coming all the way back around, and then getting off and getting back, on the Industrial. So
you currently take Oxygen from Industrial to Franklin. Okay.
Every day, all day. That's our main access.
Next question. Good. Yeah, coming out on the industrial side, does that ramps onto 340 right there?
It does. One way. I can leave, I just can't get back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Upon completion of the Mall project, does city staff know if that Oxygen, if there will be a comparable crossing at that point? Upon the completion of the Mall project, would there be any access on Oxygen over those railroad tracks, or I guess on the inside town, like on the city downtown side of Loop 340, would there be two-way traffic over those railroad tracks in roughly the same location as Oxygen currently crosses?
There's no plans right now for a roadway network to replace the existing railroad crossing that Oxygen Drive provides. TxDOT did, and I believe the City of Waco staff did due diligence and contacted all of the property owners ahead of this mall-to-mall project when it was in its planning and design phases. This is also involved with UPRR, and UPRR definitely did want this railroad crossing to go away to accommodate the frontage road bridges being built over the railroad. So it is unfortunate always when not everybody is in agreement, but this is moving forward. Access is still provided from the frontage roads onto Oxygen Drive through Dupuy Drive, I believe, Dupuy Road. And then, yeah, so I mean, access will change, but it is moving forward.
Thank you.
Do you know that the oxygen, all they're gonna do is put a barrier up where you can't cross? Are they gonna continue to support, I mean, why would they?
On your side, the north side, the Whataburger side, it will end with a cul-de-sac. So it'll be easy for turnarounds to occur as people come down Oxygen Drive, and then they can make a turnaround in a cul-de-sac and come back up the way, back towards Franklin. The side that has the Encore service station, substations or whatnot, is going to have direct driveway access onto the at-grade U-turn that will be provided underneath the frontage roads. So your side's going to have a cul-de-sac just to accommodate legal turnarounds. But yeah, your direct access is going to be from the frontage road and then onto the Franklin Avenue service road.
And we worked with thank you very much. We worked with TxDOT a lot, and the city, I think, in the conversations from the Mall to Mall project. And the concern has always been, with that road was built, and the reason it was there is to give all of us access from 84 coming this way. And TxDOT didn't have any problem with keeping it. It was the city's decision. And that's and from what I understood, the two of them, it was still kind of, there's not a really legitimate reason to close it. Other than the UPRR wants nationally to close it down, I guess.
Yep, UPRR. Can't speak for them. They're
Yeah.
not in this room.
Yeah, well, I can.
Does anybody have any final questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you, sir. Come on down, please state your name and address. And just to clarify, there's no one else here speaking in favor on this item?
I'm not speaking in favor.
Excellent. Okay. You can state your name and address.
My name is Carter Dupuy. I live on 7227 West over here in Waco. We own property along Oxygen Drive, and there's a lot of traffic through there, and a lot of traffic for Whataburger and other businesses along there, and they use that road all the time, all the way through across the railroad crossing. So I feel like it's an important artery. May not have always been intended to be that way, but it's become that way, and I think it's going to adversely affect the businesses along Oxygen Drive to close that crossing. And I didn't realize that was part of the original TxDOT plan. I thought it was going to be maintained. But anyway, that's my opinion on the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Which side of the railroad tracks are you on? Are you on the Franklin side of the tracks? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say that's the west side, Franklin side, right behind the Whataburger.
Okay.
So with that closing, it would directly affect access to your business?
It's going to make it more difficult to get to it, yes ma'am. I would say so.
Just got clarification that this did come out of the UPRR. It was a safety decision by the railroad.
So did it come out, after the plans were done, or was this?
It was, again, probably part of the discussion with TxDOT wanting to make sure that there was continuous frontage road bridges. Right now, the frontage road doesn't have a connecting link. So it probably was part of those conversations TxDOT had with UPRR, and UPRR said they wanted the at-grade railroad crossing to go away so the frontage road bridges would instead go over it. But I do know TxDOT did contact property owners at the time to determine the best possible ways to close off that at-grade crossing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey,
do you have any other questions?
Well, no. For B or legal, I actually leased Mr. Dupuy's building on this street that he's talking about like 3 months ago. Believe it or not. On his behalf. Do I need to sign another piece of paper?
You can just go home now.
Probably not a bad idea. I would think so.
We'll need for you to fill out another affidavit of substantial interest.
Okay. Thank you for coming down. If you would state your name and any comments you have.
My name is Vicki Schultz, and I live at 335 Bison in Valley Mills, Texas, and I own, along with my brother, the property next door to the Dupuy property all the way to the railroad track. And there is quite a bit of traffic that goes up and down that road. When my dad built this building many years ago, it was designed for 18-wheeler truck repair. And I have a hard time seeing how an 18-wheeler is going to make that turn between me and the Dupuy building. But it's not a truck repair place right now, but we just have tenants in there. I don't know how long this tenant's going to stay, but I'm just thinking about future down the road, what kind of a person's going to want to rent this property. So I have some concerns. I'm not in direct opposition to it, but I have some concerns. I don't see the road being wide enough for a U-turn. But that's my just 2 cents for it.
Any questions for Ms. Schultz? All right, thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Come on down. State your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Michael Baldwin. I'm the South Region Manager for Encore Electric Delivery. Business address 3620 Franklin Road. As was mentioned, we maintain a substation and a switching station that parallel the railroad tracks. So right now, if you were to leave our office on Franklin, you would travel down 84, cross over the bridge on 6, turn right in front of the Whataburger, and then go down Oxygen Drive to access our facilities. By closing that right there at the railroad track, that's going to force us to now go all the way down, I guess, to Bagby, go across, come back around. You know, we're in the electric business. Our number one objective is to get lights back on as quickly as possible. And by closing that road, it's going to make it much more difficult to get to our facilities. Also, let's say we have outages all over Waco. When we leave that substation, currently we can make an exit to the right onto Oxygen. We have really large equipment. Anything that goes into that substation, it's going to be large trucks. But you can take a right turn onto Oxygen, get up to 84, and then you've got access. You can get back to 6 if we needed to go to Woodway, if we need to go to the other side of Waco. With the closure of the road like it's designed, I guess we have to go back through Industrial, all the way around Industrial to get to the access road of 84, then to double back just to get to 6. So from just a safety standpoint with our vehicles, it's much, you know, it's always safer to make a right turn. So it's going to force us to take left turns into traffic with large equipment. And then again, just timeliness. You know, we need to be able to get into the station as quick as possible. But when we leave there, if we're going to the next location, it would just be more helpful. And as far as notification, I found out about this at 5 minutes till 6 this evening. So I don't know if the letter maybe went to our Dallas office or our Fort Worth office, but I talked to 2 of our transmission managers and we weren't aware of this until just 2 hours ago. So I would request just opposition to the closure just for the difficulty and really public safety that it could impact. And then just reliability of the electric grid. You know, it's really important that we have access into that station as quick as possible. And I'd be available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. Any questions?
I have a question for city staff. So for his concerns about safety, this recommendation was come from about safety from TxDOT, correct?
I think
from the railroad.
Does the railroad, are they the ones responsible for maintaining the signal, the caution signals, or is that city?
The railroad crossing itself?
Yes.
And yes, the railroad is responsible for maintaining.
Does city know whether there has ever been a auto or pedestrian train collision at that intersection? And if so, how many?
Have there ever been any collisions of any sort at that crossing point?
Not off the top of my head.
Go ahead.
Do you know, part of what y'all mentioned earlier was the wish to have the feeder road that connects over the railroad tracks. Do you know if there's anything that would prevent them from continuing that part of the plan and also keeping open Oxygen Drive? Do you know that? Like, for example, is there some rule you can't have two crossings within so many feet or something like that?
I can't speak to that.
Do you know if UPRR made the request after the initial mall-to-mall comment period, or to your knowledge, was it sort of a part of the initial plan?
Knowledge, it was part of the plan for the frontage road bridges to actually be connected and continuous along Highway 6.
Right, but that's not the same thing as saying they're going to close Oxygen, right? They could both be true. They could have Oxygen open and have a continuous.
I mean, this is a TxDOT project. It's not a City of Waco project.
Any additional questions for staff? Okay, anyone else here to speak on this item? Yeah, we'll close the public hearing. Okay, obviously we have a recommendation for the closure by city staff per the application of the city and TxDOT. But obviously, we probably have some discussion before we entertain a motion, so I'm going to open it up for that. So.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have been in communication with our Public Works Director, and she did state that if there is concern about all of these issues, and if you would like for them to be addressed, city staff can look into it, and it's definitely within your purview if you would like to recommend a continuance of this item.
Would we need to reopen public hearing in order to recommend a continuance?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and reopen. I won't speak for anybody else, but I think that probably sounds like a wise route. So.
Yeah, I'd move that we continue this item to the next session.
If I might maybe make a clarification of that, this is an issue that involves a lot of different municipalities, TxDOT and the City of Waco and the Railroad Commission. I think it might be fair to make a motion to continue this to our December meeting to give them a little more time than just the 3 weeks, since this is a shortened period, to give them a little more, like 6 weeks to work this out and discuss those differences.
Your point's well taken, Mr. Lane. I don't see any reason why we couldn't continue it again if it showed up next week and said that, or next one and said that they need more time.
Just stand by your motion to the November meeting.
Yeah, that's still my motion.
As your second. Okay, great. Any final discussion? Okay, please poll the commission.
Get a motion? Or
Yeah, sorry, we had a motion for continuance by Mr. Browse, second by Ms. Briscoe.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Rouse?
Yes.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Embry?
I don't think I can, right? I'm disqualified.
Harris?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Ramos? Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. We are going to delay our item F on the agenda until our November meeting, and that concludes our agenda for this evening. Meeting adjourned.